with a little covered story that is actually, I think, could be a big story. We don't know enough yet to know, but we will find out, I think, pretty soon. So on Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee Senators Charles Grassley and Lindsey Graham sent a letter to former Obama National Security Advisor Susan Rice, and they asked her to explain an email that she actually sent to herself on the last day of the Obama administration. So January 20th, they're all getting ready to go to the inauguration, and Susan Rice is at her keyboard typing out an email to Susan Rice. What exactly is in this email? Well, it explained that President Obama had held a briefing on January 5th regarding a supposed Trump-Russia collusion. So according to the letter from Grassley and Graham to Rice, it says, if the timestamp is correct, you sent this email to yourself at 12:15 p.m., presumably a very short time before you departed the White House for the last time. In this email to yourself, you purport to document a meeting that had taken place more than 2 weeks before on January 5th, 2017. So like the last minute she's in the White House, she's sending herself an email about a meeting that was held in the White House between James Comey, the then FBI director, the Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates. Both of these people have been fired or are gone from the Trump administration. Vice President Biden was present, and Susan Rice was president, and President Obama was present. So what actually happened at this meeting? According to the email that Susan Rice sent to Susan Rice, says this, quote, on January 5th, following a briefing by IC leadership, intelligence community leadership, on Russian hacking during the 2016 presidential election, President Obama had a brief follow-on conversation with FBI Director Jim Comey and Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates in the Oval Office. Vice President Biden and I were also present. President Obama began the conversation by stressing his continued commitment to ensuring that every aspect of this issue is handled by the intelligence and law enforcement communities, quote-unquote, by the book. The president stressed he is not asking about initiating or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. He reiterated that our law enforcement team needs to proceed as it normally would by the book. So that's twice she says by the book. From a national security perspective, however, President Obama said he wants to be sure that as we engage with the incoming team, we are mindful to ascertain if there is any reason that we cannot share information fully as it relates to Russia. The president asked Comey to inform him if anything changes in the next few weeks that should affect how we share classified information with the incoming team, and Comey said that he would. So there are a bunch of things about this email that Rice sent to Rice that should be disturbing. First of all, why was she sending a memo to herself? The only reason that you send a memo to yourself, legally speaking as a lawyer, the only reason you do that is to create a paper trail. So she wanted a paper trail suggesting that this meeting was totally hunky-dory, which is why it says twice in the email that this was all happening, quote-unquote, by the book. That in and of itself is suspicious. Second, how exactly would Obama have planned to prevent the intelligence community from handing over information to the incoming commander-in-chief? I mean, that's disturbing stuff. We talk about violation of presidential norms. Well, one of the presidential norms is not just norms. What is the law is that when the chief executive comes in, when the commander-in-chief enters, he now has access to all the classified materials. But here is Obama saying to Comey, tell me what I should not tell the president of the United States, the president-elect of the United States. Tell me what I should not tell him. The implication being that the outgoing administration was going to hide information about the incoming administration from the incoming administration with regard to, quote-unquote, Trump-Russia collusion. Right? Trump has full constitutional power over the executive branch, including the IC. But Obama said he might want to prevent the full sharing of information regarding Russia. I mean, talk about violation of norms. Shift the names here, and then imagine the fallout. Imagine that George W. Bush, in the last days of his administration, had into his office the heads of his intelligence community and Vice President Cheney, and he said to them, listen, I'm very suspicious of this Obama guy. It seems like he has a lot of conflicting feelings about the United States. What if we just don't give him all the information? What if we just keep that hidden? People would say, well, that's insane. I mean, he's the president-elect of the United States. He can't do that. The president-elect of the United States is owed this information. And yet that's apparently exactly what Obama was talking about. Third, Obama said he didn't want to interfere with anything from a law enforcement perspective, but how about from an intelligence gathering perspective? So Andy McCarthy over at National Review has been aces on this. He says since the beginning, there's been a major distinction people have missed between the Mueller investigation as a counterintelligence investigation and the Mueller investigation as a criminal investigation. These are not the same thing. A counterintelligence investigation is an investigation where you're attempting to determine if someone's trying to influence our elections, if somebody in the United States is maybe working with those people, but it is not a criminal investigation in the sense that you need to gather evidence for possible prosecution. Well, Obama seems to be making the same distinction. He's not saying we're going to prosecute anyone from the Trump administration. He is saying that we're in the middle of a counterintelligence investigation, and maybe that means that we shouldn't hand over information to Trump. So Grassley and Graham asked a series of questions that do deserve answers from Susan Rice. She's not famous for giving forthright answers to straight questions. Some of these questions, why did Rice send the email in the first place? When was she aware of the Trump-Russia collusion investigation? Because if this meeting was about the Trump-Russia collusion investigation, and they were using that as an excuse not to hand over information to Trump and team, that's a problem. Was Susan Rice aware of the FISA warrants on Carter Page? Was the Obama administration using a thinly obtained FISA warrant on Carter Page in order to target the Trump administration for future curbs on their intelligence gathering? Did Comey or Yates mention any media coverage of the Steele dossier? Was Susan Rice aware of the Steele dossier? Were there any more meetings of this sort? We don't know the answers to any of these questions, but we better get the answers to some of these questions because this is a violation of serious norms. We keep hearing over and over again that the Trump administration has breached norms. This is not normal. We hear that all the time. And listen, I'm the first to say when I think something that is not normal is going on. I don't think that it's normal to have this level of turnover in the White House in the first year. I don't think that it's normal, the President of the United States, to say what he said after Charlottesville or for him to suggest that he doesn't want Haitian immigrants. I don't think that it's normal for the President of the United States to be making excuses for an alleged child molester in Alabama or for him to suggest that a guy on his own staff there's evidence of wife beating, that guy says he's innocent and therefore meh. Right? I don't think that any of that is normal. But if we're going to talk about breaches of normality that actually go to the heart of the system, this is one of them. For all the talk about Trump being the incipient tyrant, the Hitlerian figure who is going to come in and overthrow all constitutional boundaries, just destroy the Constitution piece by piece, that's not what's happened. The norms that Trump has destroyed have been norms of behavior. That's bad, right? That's stuff that I don't like because a lot of those norms I think are good. But if you're talking about who perverted institutions, the Obama administration perverted institutions far more than the Trump administration has. I mean, this is the Obama administration had an attorney general who now wants to talk about running for president, who called himself the president of the United States' wingman. The Obama administration militarized the IRS for use against conservative nonprofits. The IRS had to apologize for that just in recent months. The Obama administration used the HHS as a center of corruption under Kathleen Sebelius. The Obama administration was utilizing the FBI in order to let Hillary Clinton off the hook. Right? The Obama administration corrupted institution after institution. So when we talk about violation of norms, that's where we should start. Everybody's focused on the shiny object of the silliness of some of the stuff happening inside the Trump administration. But when we talk about norms that have been destroyed and violated, that did not begin with Trump. Trump is a response to violation of norms. And the American public said, fine, you want to violate some norms? We will violate all norms. How about that? And ironically, the norms that have been reinstated are those constitutional checks and balances. The norms that have been broken are the cultural taboos that in many cases probably should have stood in the first place. The media, while they haven't been focusing on the violation of institutional norms by the Obama administration, they're focusing in on supposed breaches of protocol by the Trump administration. Well, some of those breaches are actual breaches, right? Like, why was Omarosa working in the Trump administration? So Omarosa Manigault was on The Apprentice, fired 3 times, and then Trump hired her for the White House and then fired her again. And now she's on Celebrity Big Brother, where apparently there are rumors that she was slipping out of her robe. I haven't actually watched the show, and now I have no desire to do so. But Omarosa actually, on the show last night, she ripped into Mike Pence.
Can I just say this? As bad as y'all think Trump is, you would be worried about Pence.
I know.
So everybody that's wishing for impeachment might want to reconsider their life.
Absolutely.
We would be begging for days of Trump back if Pence became president. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, the violation of norms that went on here is why in the hell was this woman anywhere near power? She was a celebrity reality TV contestant, and then she was ousted, and now she's back on celebrity reality TV. I mean, there's a hell of a career arc. To go from reality TV to the White House and back to reality TV, just spectacular. But is that violation of presidential norms severely damaging to the United States in the same way as, say, a prior administration refusing to hand over intelligence data? I don't think so. And the media have been attempting to spot violations of norms in every nook and cranny. Right? Everywhere. There are violations of norms. This is not normal. This is what they're constantly saying. So yesterday, for example, they decided to jump on Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General. Attorney General Sessions, I think, has overall been doing a fine job. And Attorney General Sessions was giving a speech about the sheriff's office. And here's what he had to say.
Since our founding, the independently elected sheriff has been the people's protector, who keeps law enforcement close to and accountable to people through the elective process. The office of sheriff is a critical part of the Anglo-American heritage of law enforcement.
Everyone jumped on that phrase, the Anglo-American heritage of law enforcement. Oh, he's saying white people. Ooh, controversy. He's saying white people. Brian Schatz, the idiotic senator from Hawaii, IQ of 7. And he says, do you know anyone who says Anglo-American heritage in a sentence? What could possibly be the purpose of saying that other than to pit Americans against each other? For the chief law enforcement officer to use a dog whistle like that is appalling. Best no vote I ever cast. Okay, this is, as Charles Cook says over at National Review, politely, this is moronic. Okay, this is idiotic. The Anglo-American heritage of law enforcement and the Anglo-American heritage of America's legal system has been commented on by virtually every president. It springs all the way back to, you can go all the way back to William Blackstone, which was used as the basis for a lot of American law. British common law was the basis for a lot of American law. Here's Senator Obama in 2006 before he was president. Talk about habeas corpus. Quote, I sincerely hope we can protect what has been called the Great Writ, a writ that has been in place in the Anglo-American legal system for over 700 years. Clearly, Barack Obama was a racist. In 2008, during the campaign, quote, calling it the foundation of Anglo-American law, he said that the principle of habeas corpus says very simply, if the government grabs you, you have the right to at least ask, why was I grabbed, right? So again, talking about the Anglo-American law. And then there's President Obama saying, quote, Obama would not say whether it could be achieved within the first 100 days of his term, citing the challenge of creating a balanced process that adheres to the rule of law, habeas corpus, basic principles of Anglo-American legal system. How dare Jeff Sessions? How dare Jeff Sessions? This is what I'm saying about why people don't trust the media. Okay, when you guys go looking for reasons to say this is not normal about Trump, but then you completely ignore this is not normal about Democrats, then we start to think that maybe, just maybe, you have a little bit of bias. Speaking of bias and normalization of terrible behavior, okay, a top DNC official, Keith Ellison, dined with Louis Farrakhan and the president of Iran in 2013. Okay, this is according to Fox News. Democratic National Committee Deputy Chair Keith Ellison, who is an anti-Semite, a raging anti-Semite, attended a private dinner hosted by Iranian President Hassan Rouhani in 2013, along with the head of the black nationalist group Nation of Islam, Louis Farrakhan. You'll remember that this guy was endorsed by Chuck Schumer to become head of the DNC. You'll also remember that he said at the time that he had completely cut ties with Louis Farrakhan, yet there he was in 2013 having dinner with the president of a genocidal anti-Jewish state in Iran and the head of the Nation of Islam, the anti-Semite Louis Farrakhan. Ellison also visited with Farrakhan again in 2015. Ellison attended the 2013 dinner with two other members of the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, Representatives Andre Carson, Democrat from Indiana, and Gregory Meeks, Democrat from New York. Rouhani invited Muslim leaders from around the United States to dinner after addressing the UN General Assembly. And the Nation of Islam website confirmed the attendance of Louis Farrakhan. And then there were articles at the Nation of Islam publication confirming Ellison there with photos of Ellison and Farrakhan at the table. Right, after the guests were hosted at a dinner, the Iranian president entered and engaged in warm discussion with guests, including Democratic Congressman Greg Meeks of New York, Keith Ellison of Minnesota, who is a Muslim. Right, this is what Final Call wrote on October 2nd, 2013. This, of course, is not the first time Ellison has been associated with Louis Farrakhan. Ellison attended the Million Man March in 1995 and publicly defended Farrakhan years ago, even after Farrakhan made a bunch of anti-Semitic remarks and called Jews satanic. And Farrakhan slammed Ellison in 2015 after Ellison tried to distance himself from Farrakhan. But this is what's truly amazing. The media are willing to go crazy over Jeff Sessions saying Anglo-American, which is totally fine, right? Totally fine. Barack Obama said it. There's nothing wrong with saying Anglo-American law enforcement heritage. The office of sheriff is an actual smashing together of two terms from British common law, shire and reeve, right? Shire and reeve, sheriff. Okay, that's where it comes from. Of course, it's a feature of Anglo-American law. That is something the media have to comment on. That's something we have to be deeply concerned about, is that it was coded white people language. But when it comes to actual Democrats dining with actual terrorist leaders and actual anti-Semites, nothing. Not a word. We all have to pretend that Keith Ellison is totally normal. We have to pretend that Keith Ellison is just a normal part of American politics. This is not normal. You want to talk about this is not normal? That is not normal.